I hereby call the Brockton School Committee to order, it being Tuesday, October 15, 2024. We're at the George M. Romm Little Theater, Brockton High School, which is 470 Forest Ave, Brockton, Mass. 02301. I do want to make a statement for the record why we're running a little late. There was 2 subcommittee meetings earlier tonight. There was a little bit of a snafu with technology, so it has delayed us at least a half hour on those committees, and that's why we're running a little late. It is 7:36 p.m. I'd like to read the following into the record. Welcome to a meeting of the Brockton School Committee. This is the agenda that will be discussed this evening. Please note the hearing of visitors is included, and we do have the sign-in. We have one individual. If you have a statement or question, please give your name to the secretary. Mrs. Campbell has given me that sheet. In addition to attending, the public can view this meeting via television on Comcast Channel 8 and also the 1071 HD version, and online via the following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Before we stand, I'm going to establish a quorum. Mrs. Sullivan? Here. Mr. Gomes? Here. Mr. Vega?
Here.
Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Vice Chair Rodriguez? Here. Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
I'm here as well. We're here also with Secretary Clerk, Dr. Tahiliani. Thank you so much for being here, Superintendent. We also have our student representative. I'm going to ask us now to stand and salute the American flag, and please remain standing, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could please stand. We lost a former Brockton High School principal and also a heck of a track coach. Harry Allen passed away at the age of 93. He was principal of this high school. He is in the Athletic Hall of Fame at Marciano Stadium. The track is named after Mr. Allen. I was on his track teams in the mid-'80s. He was an unbelievable coach, but a better person. So if we could just please stand, remember his commitment to Brockton Public Schools and the boys and girls that graduated from this high school. Again, Mr. Allen. May he rest in peace. Thank you, everybody. At this time, we will now go on to Agenda 2, hearing of visitors, and I'll read into the record. Pursuant to school committee policy, each person requesting to speak shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Since this period is limited to 15 minutes, a total of 5 people shall be permitted to speak on a first-come, first-served basis. We do have one individual, Ms. Corey Spalding, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I know you're in a hurry, but I just want to make sure I have my timer on. How does it work here? Does somebody, okay, it's going to be hard for me to, I'm already going, huh? Okay, so my name's Corey Spalding, and this is a difficult conversation to have with you all because I am a whistleblower, and I am here to call out your report. It is inaccurate. I have an email chain, 60 pages from me and Mayor Sullivan, going back, beginning in May of 2021, that I would like to be made public, unredacted, that confirms you knew about the fraud that involves federal grants, at least in 2021, and that you conspired with your public records person, Mr. Ben Boo Lim. Apologize, I do not like doing this. I am here because I had also exposed fraud in Natick of $20 million, and they retaliated against my child, and she is now fully disabled. And I would like this to be made public along with another email chain that confirms the ongoing fraud. The second email confirms that Congressman Lynch was fully aware and complicit. I am here on behalf of the citizens of Brockton, most specifically the children who are not getting the benefits that the federal grants was earmarked and designated for them. He talked about policies. The policy, MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committee, the policy for accepting grants requires all school committees members to vote for a grant, and it's documented in the minutes, and anybody that wants to see that grant, it's supposed to be posted on the agenda items. It's not, and it hasn't been. It hasn't been for a very, if ever. I went back 20 years. That's very concerning. Similar issues going on with your city council. I want this matter to be made public. You could put it on an agenda that you all just talked about, but I would rather it be a public hearing. I want the public to see the documents and to know all the evidence that I have that confirms. You can talk to your attorney spout, of course. She will tell you, I do not ever misrepresent the truth. We've been in court with your legal team since 2014. The attorney that wrote this report, I will be filing a complaint against him with the Board of Bar Overseers because he, on page 21, intentionally misrepresented the Massachusetts statute. He said it was grants and gifts, Chapter 71, Section 37A. You know that's incorrect. The policy is DD under Mass C, and the law, the statute, is Chapter 44, subsection 53A. So this is, you are intentionally misrepresenting the
I'm sorry, your
public.
time is up.
I would like this matter to be put on a public hearing. And I am giving this to you. Please make it public, unredacted.
Thank you, Ms. Spalding.
You're very welcome.
And I will give it to legal counsel. Thank you.
I will too.
That concludes hearing of visitors, Agenda 2. We will now go on to Agenda 3, Reporter Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tahiliani, please.
Thank you. So we are going to start with our student representative report.
Good evening, Mayor Sullivan, Dr. Tahiliani, Superintendent of Schools, and Vice Chair Mr. Tony Rodriguez, and the rest of the distinguished school committee members. I appreciate you for having me here today and for all the hard work and effort that you have put towards ensuring that me and my peers have a quality school year. Thank you. The girls volleyball team hosted their breast cancer awareness game on October 9th against New Bedford. The BHS football team took the win on their game against Lawrence on October 4th. Family ID opened to register for winter sports. AP and IB testing. The school has ensured that all students taking AP and IB courses are aware that they need to pay their testing fees, with the deadline being today, October 15th. The date of the actual test will be in early to mid-May. SAT and college fair. As the time for college prep is quickly approaching, the school is offering free help with the SAT on October 19th, October 26th, November 9th, and November 23rd. The school is hosting weekly college fairs on Wednesdays after school in the Red Calf with new colleges every week. We're hosting colleges like Rhode Island University, New York University, and more. Senior events. The senior class of 2025 has officially selected their DECA hoodie design. The senior field day is on October 25th. Student feedback. As the school year progresses, the students at Brockton High are continuing to head towards success. While we are still adjusting to the new policies taking place this year, the staff has done a wonderful job at keeping the students on track. With determination and diligence, the school is set to continue reaching new heights. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Tahiliani, I just through you, I want to thank you as a student representative. Great, really great to have you here tonight. Any members have any thoughts or comments for our student rep? Ms. Oliver, please.
I have a quick question. What was the fee for the AP and IB testing? I don't remember. I know I paid for my daughter, but I totally forgot.
Yeah.
Was it $95?
There is an exception if you do take, if you're like a full IB student, there is an exception where you don't have to pay, because you would have to pay $95 per course, and that's a lot of money. So if you are like a full IB student, that's waived.
That's great to know. Also, if there was like any like scholarship or even for parents that can't afford, especially $95, and if multiple classes that they are in.
Yes. There's also like programs like TRIO that the school has that can help students that like can't financially support the fees. You can work with TRIO and they'll help students get that waived. But you do have to have like certain things like housing and stuff like that. But there is ways for students who are unable to afford it that they can like possibly get it waived.
Thank you. That's great to know.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Any additional comments? Mr. Sullivan, please.
Thank you for your report. It was excellent. I just had one question on the senior field day.
What time is that? On the October 25th?
I'm not specifically sure on the time, but I think it does take place during the school day.
The regular school time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other last comments? On behalf of the committee, thank you again and welcome.
Thank
Nice
you.
job. Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the presentation of the DESE Memorandum of Understanding and Safety Audit. I'm going to start with this one. Okay. Right. Can you do that? Is that possible? Okay. Thanks. So before I jump into the MOU, I did just want to do a couple of highlights and updates first, as I usually do. So to start, South hosted its annual Back to School Bash at the start of this month, where students and families came together to celebrate with fun activities. There were lawn and table games, space and pumpkin painting, good food, music from South's in-house student DJ, a magic show, and more. I know many of our schools host events like this that promote school spirit and family engagement, and I want to thank the community businesses and organizations that donate time and resources, as well as the staff who volunteer their own time to make these events and traditions as special as can be. Also, just a thank you once again to the Brockton Public Library for its generous donation of copies of the Word Collector to each of our kindergarten students who have begun to receive their copies, including at the Baker and the George. They are loving their new books. Congratulations to the 34 Brockton High School students whose art was exhibited at the Fuller Craft Museum, which lasted from July through this past weekend. Shown here are just some of the pieces that were on display, showcasing the incredible artistic talent that we have right here at BHS. Also, congratulations to the 21 Brockton Middle School students from Ashfield, Plouffe, North, and West who represented us in the Bridgewater State University Honor Band last week. They took part in a full day of rehearsal and a concert with peers from other communities, giving them a wonderful opportunity to collaborate with their fellow middle schoolers and explore new rehearsal techniques to build their musical skills. And as an opportunity for all of our middle schoolers, students in grades 6 through 8 are invited to Brockton High School on October 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. to learn more about our career and technical education offerings available right here in Brockton. Students can take their first steps in learning about a career that interests them and begin thinking about pursuing those pathways when they begin high school at BHS. There are options ranging from automotive tech to culinary arts to finance, marketing, and management. So I encourage students and families to take advantage of this early opportunity to learn more. Information about how to register is available on the district's website at bpsma.org /about/calendar. And for just a quick data check, DIBELS 8 is the tool we use to assess the acquisition of literacy skills in our K-3 students. We also use it to progress monitor students along the way so we can respond with targeted instruction in areas of need. There are 4 bands in which a student might fall based on his or her composite score: well below benchmark, at benchmark, or above benchmark. Benchmark refers to where we would hope a student's literacy skills would be at that time of year in that particular grade level. As we look at our 2024 beginning of the year data that was collected just a week ago and compared to the data collected last year for the same group of students, we see many bright spots. For example, at this point in time, 52% of our grade 1 students who were below benchmark as kindergartners in fall of 2023 are beginning this year either at benchmark or above benchmark. 15% of our grade 1 students who began last year well below benchmark are beginning this school year at or above benchmark. When we look at our current grade 2 students, 47% of those who were below benchmark in fall of 2023 as grade 1 students are currently at or above benchmark in fall of 2024. For students currently in grade 3, 44% of those who began grade 2 well below benchmark are now at or above benchmark. What that means is not only did teachers' instruction move students' skills throughout the school year, but the skills that students left with last spring were maintained over the summer. I look forward to presenting you with data highlights like these throughout the course of the year. And so now I'm going to turn to our MOU. So in October of 2020, DESE released a district review report of BPS that highlighted both the strengths and, as they stated, the major structural problems of BPS at that time. Megan Bridges actually referred to this report when she was presenting our recent budgetary investigation, as there were issues and concerns that were laid out as early as 2020. So as a result, BPS signed an MOU with DESE in 2020, where we agreed to take substantial steps towards district-wide improvement in several areas. Then this year in 2024, DESE updated and amended the MOU to reflect the progress that had already been made, but also to outline the work that still needed to be done. The final agreement in that MOU was to conduct a safety and operations audit of Brockton High School, which I presented to you at our October 1st meeting. Tonight, I'm going to provide you with our district plan to address safety and security as a result of those audit findings. But first, as required by DESE, I will be providing you with an overview of our MOU for context. So here are the requirements of the original DESE MOU, which include district improvement plans, hiring of a consultant, consistent leadership team meetings, monthly meetings between DESE and the superintendent, DESE and district design team meetings, DESE support for our district improvement plan, as well as regular updates to the school committee and to DESE. All of these agreements are on track, and the district has shown significant progress in the implementation of each of these since 2020. In fact, our last update regarding the progress we have made on our MOU was given to DESE in June of this last year, and our next regular update or progress report to you all, the school committee, on all aspects of the MOU will be on November 19th. So here are the criteria outlined in the MOU regarding district improvement plans. At a high level, they focus on improvements around the district's use of data related to student performance, implementation of high-quality curriculum district-wide, our educator evaluation procedures, taking steps to better support students with disabilities and English language learners, continued implementation of positive behavioral supports to eliminate inequities in discipline, and addressing non-compliance issues in the tiered focused monitoring report. Now, many of these are going to sound familiar to you because you've received many presentations over the last few years that were specific to these individual requirements. However, in November, I will be providing you with sort of a succinct, comprehensive update of how we're doing on everything. These are the areas where DESE offered to provide support for this work, including plan development and implementation, leadership development, support for creating a DEI office, diversifying our teacher workforce, supporting the work of the district design team, facilitating the English learner program evaluation, and professional development. BPS was also provided with metrics for determining progress in better supporting students with disabilities. They required that we develop data tracking and metrics to track our progress in placing students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment possible. The benchmark with both of these is alignment with the state rates of 13.2% of students aged 6 through 21 in substantially separate settings and 22.2% for students aged 3 through 5. The MOU also requires that we report to DESE on data analysis once per quarter, which we have continued to do. We actually worked with them last Friday as we look at our data metrics most recently, that again will be presented to you November 19th. BPS also agreed to take ambitious steps to ensure that English learners are effectively integrated into general education classrooms. As per the MOU, we were required to demonstrate that all English learners in dual language programs are receiving appropriate ESL instruction, and that 100% of ELs with disabilities are receiving appropriate EL instruction. We were also charged with creating a clear plan and achievable timeline to carry out the chosen ELA programs in the least segregated manner. Finally, we were tasked with creating a clear timeline and implementation plan for ESL curriculum development. Some additional provisions were improving implementation of our educator evaluation systems, implementing strategies to ensure shared understanding of high-quality curriculum and instruction, and implementing strong HR systems and procedures. Another aspect of the MOU is focused on improving the four-year graduation rate for students with disabilities, which was significantly lower than the states at the time. To get there, we've been working on interventions to support students, transitional approaches that focus on 8th graders transitioning to high school, planning for implementation of Mass Core, and expanding learning opportunities for all of our students. The MOU, as you know, also addressed needs on the finance front, identifying areas where we needed to improve our fiscal infrastructure, like developing an organizational structure, clarifying roles, providing opportunities for growth in-house, and cross-training staff. And as you know, this work is ongoing and will be, you'll be updated not only on November 19th, but that will also be a stream of work that you'll be updated on regularly during school committee meetings. And then finally, the final agreement in our MOU addendum was focused on safety and security. The three-pronged plan that I present to you today was the result of collaboration between BHS leadership, Principal McCaskill, BPS School Police, and our security director, Rob Jackson, who is here with us today and will be able to answer specific questions you may have both publicly and during executive session. Since the time the MOU addendum was written, as you know, we've made significant progress in addressing both the findings of the safety audit and enhancing the culture of safety and security at BHS. BHS set the tone for the start of the school year with a freshman orientation that set expectations from the start of the school year, updating student ID cards for all students and ensuring that everyone knew the expectations coming into the start of the year. We've created a safety and security team with 24 safety and security specialist positions, all of which are almost completely filled. There are tracking logs and communication protocols for security staff, as well as newly reestablished norms based on daily assessment and feedback to the security team. We've implemented new coverage plans that keep common areas clear, and students are no longer congregating in cafeterias when classes are uncovered. New clearly identifiable uniforms have been ordered for our safety security specialists, and we've also identified hotspots that merit a higher level of attention from security staff. Finally, we've purchased handheld metal detectors for secondary screening as needed. So these are some of the things that already have been done. What we're doing. So while we've completed a lot in the security front, there's other work that's ongoing that we expect will make these efforts even stronger and more effective. On a daily basis, Mr. Jackson and his team are evaluating school security and identifying improvements, and meeting regularly with school leaders at BHS to assess existing and future protocols. We have 2 individuals who are getting closer to joining the school police force, so that will soon be a better staffed resource at our disposal. All 6 of the new security staff members who just joined us have completed training on the CEIA weapon detection system, and an additional person has done a refresher training that allows us to streamline security screening. Thank you to Sergeant Livingston for supporting us in that effort. Also, we have mandatory safety care training coming up for security staff. There's also a significant amount of work related to security cameras, including installing more of them in all of our stairwells and assessing what our current camera coverage looks like and how that can be built upon. We're working also on better signage that includes multiple languages, reviewing exterior lighting and fencing, and considering ways to improve on existing evacuation, lockdown, and reentry drills. And then finally, what we are still exploring, because obviously this is going to be a multi-year endeavor, and we're actively exploring options for enhanced security. So for example, we're working on creating a trespassing policy, which would be accompanied by signage and response protocols. We're also looking at merging all of our policies into what will become a standardized emergency handbook. We're looking at installing vape detectors and crash bars on exterior doors, as well as the possibility of having fobs rather than keys for the elevators. We're also planning a regular ERT meetings and annual policy reviews to make sure we're as current as we can be with our approaches to safety and security. There are a couple of policies under development that can support both overall safety and student well-being, including a student mental health crisis and trauma recovery policy. And while we have the submitted tip feature on our website, we're looking at ways to develop and expand upon anonymous reporting of concerns. As you know, Mr. Jackson is the Director of Security district-wide, and not just at BHS, and we believe that his being based at the high school this year will allow the team to find success that can then be applied through consistent policies and procedures at all of our schools. There are also efforts underway to consider training for external stakeholders. And of course, we're always looking at funding opportunities, whether that's through grants, capital budgeting, or some combination, to ensure we're investing as much as is needed in our security infrastructure. Finally, we're exploring ways to improve access control to our buildings and monitoring. So this gives you an overview of our plans, which will be discussed in more detail during executive session, so as not to divulge sensitive information or our plans. But I did want our stakeholders to know that this is an ongoing effort and that they will see steady change and improvement as we continue to hold safety as a priority in our district.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tahiliani. Members of the committee, I know we will be talking about this in executive session, and we won't be divulging anything here in public session that could be critical to providing safety mechanisms to protect the students and the staff. But are there any questions for what Doctor just presented to us from the committee? I'll go with Mr. Vega, followed by Mrs. Sullivan, followed by Ms. Oliver, please.
I'm going to take advantage of the fact that there were multiple presentations in that presentation. So I'm going to jump in a time machine and ask a question about our grade 1, grade 3 literacy scores. So it is incredible to have data that shows the level of improvement that's gone on from one year to the next. And so my question isn't to diminish that at all, but rather to put some of this in context in terms of targets that we're going for. Do you have a sense yet of how we compare at those grade levels with state performance?
Yes, not right now. So the way I was thinking about presenting our data is I wanted to do highlights sort of throughout because data presentations can be kind of unwieldy at times. But we will be presenting not only on our MCAS data, but I think it is very important for us to be presenting on our interim assessments because they are less of a lagging indicator and they indicate what our students are learning right now. And how they are even comparing right here this fall to last year, and then they'll take them in the middle of the year and at the end of the year. So we will be I'll be doing data highlights as part of just the superintendent update, but we will be providing our interim assessment comparisons so that you can see not just for K-3, but for all of our grade band levels.
Also, later in the presentation, I think when we flipped to MOU, you had mentioned that the state is offering support around a number of things, but I heard you specifically say develop the expansion of the DEI office, development of the DEI office, as well as efforts to diversify our teaching population. What does that look like? I mean, have they expressed what that support would look like? Are we talking cash monies? Are we talking what is support from the state look like?
Yeah, so there's actually a teacher diversification grant that we have received and hope to continue to receive. And then there are also teacher diversification work groups that come along with that where you're working with other districts to see what their practices are that they've utilized so that we can maybe share our best practices, or we can learn from other districts what has worked. So they do have, support, not only financial, but they do have support so that we can share best practices as well.
And last question. Somewhere in the presentation, in talking about some of the things that are being implemented in the district, and more specifically, I think at the high school, the move to mass core was mentioned in there. In light of some of the conversation and the vote that's coming up around MCAS scoring, for those who might be concerned about the vote leading to it no longer MCAS not being a requirement for graduation, though it would still stay in place, does mass core address any of those concerns? Potentially, does it move to it? Yeah, in your opinion.
I think that might be a longer presentation or answer, but I think what you're getting at is just ensuring that there are standards for our students and that we are continuing to make them more rigorous and that we are aligning them to what the state deems best practice. So yes, I mean, we're always looking at models that are going to do that, but what I will say too is that we have a lot of models here already in the form of our pathways, our CTE programs, that are also setting our students up for success. So I think it's important to note the work that's already being done as well. But Mass Core is part of the MOU, and I know that it is something that you all voted on last year, and we do have implementation planning happening all this school year. And so that will be something that will be providing you updates on how that's going and how we envision that moving forward.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sullivan, followed by Ms. Oliver, please.
I'm not sure who to direct the question to, Superintendent Telehani or Principal McGaskill or Mr. Jackson, but I just wanted to know if we could, how is the implementation of the updated student IDs and the Yonder bags going?
I would definitely invite one of them up, whoever's moving first. I see Principal McCaskill.
Good evening, Principal.
Good evening. How's everyone this evening?
Very well,
Good.
thank you.
And so far, so good. With Yonder, we're going through the policy and as such. One of the things, obviously, students are now trying to find, some alternative means to get communication out. And it's not a challenge, but it's something that, we have to be very aware of. And when you come with a double phone or you come with an extra pair of iPods and as such, and those are some of the behaviors we're existing. But overall, we're very pleased at where we're at. 3,700 students every single day going through those, the metal detectors in that process. Teachers, and we have them here. I mean, it's a market difference. And that's the one thing, but one of the things we are saying a mantra in our school, we have to be very consistent, and that's from an administrative perspective. So we're pleased, we're not satisfied. We're pleased with the start, and again, stay very consistent going forward. The IDs, I think it's fantastic. You can't have a senior who's 18 years old, and when you look at the ID, they look like they're 7 years old. And that was something of why students weren't putting them on and why they were blocking them as well. So and again, kudos go out to our administrators this summer who really did a yeoman's job of getting all those IDs done. I know we still have a few more to go because we're getting new students as we speak, but very pleased with those two aspects of the school.
Thank you. So students are required to wear the ID during the day?
Yeah, it's a constant reminder to get them on, but one of the things that we're seeing, we can see the lanyards, so when they see us, they're putting them on. Obviously, students being students, when they get around the corner, no adults will take them off, but again, they have their IDs on them, which is great. What we have to do is stop them from forgetting the IDs and purchasing the temporary ones. And believe it or not, they wear the temporary IDs more than they do with their regular IDs.
So Principal McGaskill, could you just speak a little bit about how the Yonder bags, do they put the cell phone in the yonder bag when they come in, after they go through the metal detector? Does someone see them do that?
With the yonder pouch, the phone goes in as soon as they come in, as far as their earbuds and their eye watches as well. So all three items can go in at one time. It is secured, it is checked, and then they go on. Now, obviously, if they come with a double phone, they're the odd people out. Because one of the things we have learned, kids snitch. If I can't use my phone, you're not going to use your phone. So one of the things where students have been very vigilant about, if I cannot use mine, you are not either. So that's where, I think that's where the policy, where the students are really accepting the policy, saying, if it goes for one, it goes for all of us. So, but again, it is secured at the door, and we go through it, obviously, with their laptops as well.
Right, and we're working towards full participation on both things?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So the earbuds and things are not allowed
Earbuds,
during the
headphones,
day?
and as such, and we still have to get them from wearing the headphones and as such, because again, if you don't have your phone, why do you have headphones?
Right.
So that's the next phase. Mhm.
What if I was to bring an iPad in and,
iPads are against the policy itself. It says either from or electrical devices. Now, one of the things, and I should bring this up as well, I know we are running short on laptops. And I think, the IT department's doing their best. And I know there's a pending order for additional ones, and whatever the city and the school department can do to expedite that, it would be fantastic. And because it creates a conundrum for us, especially when students are taking certain courses in which the technology is definitely required. But as of now, it is against, the iPads are against the electronic policy here for Brockton Public Schools.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Oliver?
I want to applaud you and your team and the superintendent for all the hard work. I can feel it in the air of how good it's going so far. I'm not going to jinx it. So all those recommendations, is it something that we're also going to push it towards the other, our schools, like our middle schools and elementary, to make sure they're also safe, not only Brockton High, but also the middle school, especially the middle schools also?
So as part of the audit that DESE did, they had actually given us for all of our high schools, so not just Brockton High, obviously they were focused on Brockton High, but in your packet for executive session, you will have seen all of them. As for the middle schools, we're excited to have a security director, Mr. Jackson, on board, because that's exactly what we're thinking, is that by implementing these procedures in all of our schools, all of our different high schools, that it will then be easier for us to sort of scale into our middle school. So there are already things that we're looking at as far as cameras but some of the things that we are also considering right now is how we're building this into a future plan and into future budgets. So it's a multi-tiered plan. So yes, definitely we'll be getting to all of the schools, not just middle schools. I would say all of our school buildings over time.
Perfect. At least the students in the middle school will be prepared, and expectations will be the same going into Brockton High. Two other questions. Just correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have currently a trespassing policy?
So we actually, a lot of these policies that they had talked about, we have them, but it's about having them be more consistent, having them clearly articulated, and then having signage, so that those who are coming on to property know what could potentially happen. And so while we have a policy, it could be more robust. There are things that you can do to outline the consequences of trespassing, and that's what we don't necessarily have. That's not to say that our school police and our security aren't then imposing consequences, because they absolutely are, but it's about really articulating what those consequences are so that the general public knows, and so that it's consistent throughout all of our schools.
Does that also include like protection orders against, like, say, family members of like parents that are not allowed in the building? Is that something that's already implemented in the school, that the school front office is aware of, like certain people not supposed to like pick up their students in that situation?
Yes, and I think that was sort of one of the themes that we saw throughout our audit, which was just that we have a lot of these policies. We work very closely with school police and who are well trained and who do support us, but in all of these different situations, but I think the theme was articulating it so that staff members know, so that front office knows. So yes, absolutely, to that point, it's about making sure that everybody in the district is on the same page.
Perfect. Last thing, the drafting the trauma recovery policy, is that focusing on the students, and who is exactly focusing on?
Yes, it is to focus on the students, because again, part of the audit was looking not just at physical safety, but also their mental well-being. And what I will say from, having been here a few months and getting to see our SEL team in action, again, this is one of those things where there are certainly procedures that are already in place that happen when when we need to respond to any kind of situation, large or small. So I think again, I was reading as a theme in the audit was to articulate that so that everyone knows what it looks like, so that a parent can read, what does it look like? Because we know internally, and our SEL team knows internally what we're doing as far as communications and supports that get deployed to schools or supports that get deployed for individual students. But again, it's just about making sure that that's articulated.
Can we also have, sadly, sometime we might have trauma within our educators too, ways that we can also help them, because you never know what's going on outside, and then bring it in if they're having a very traumatic day. Ways also recovery policy, ways to help our educators also, not only our students.
Yes, that's a
Thank
great
you.
point.
Ms. Azak, please.
Thank you. So actually, before our first meeting started, our subcommittee, I ran into one of our students, and he actually asked if we could bring some trauma support, where they've lost friends, other students, just have some kind of a group. So I told him to just, always reach out, and I'm sure I'll run into him again at the next meeting. But our students are asking for this. They need the support. A lot of them don't know how to deal with it, and they need the professionals to help them. So your presentation was very thorough. So thank you, and I saw some things in there that I've been asking for quite some time as far as security, so I'm glad that we're finally going to be enforcing those. Principal McCaskill, the Yonder bags. I've actually heard from other communities, people have reached out, and they're looking at us as an example, because we have our high school is like a small college campus, and they're looking at us and seeing that, sometimes talking about it, it's just way too much talk, because other districts have been doing it, and I've heard from educators, I've heard from other districts, people are saying it's not perfect, but it is helping out, and they are seeing a huge difference. Even some of the students have reached out. It's just they're focusing more in class because they don't have the distractions that the cell phones and other things are giving them. So it's a positive. I've heard a lot of positive. Just a question. So if a student shows up and they don't have their Yonder bag, how are we addressing that? I heard what's being done, but if you can just let us know, what are they doing? And then on average, how many students are just showing up without a Yonder bag? Like, how is each building, we're consecutive in every single building, we're all doing the same thing when students show up without their Yonder bag? Are we all every building's addressing it the same?
Absolutely. Yeah, if they have a phone, they don't have a bag, we take their phone, and the phone is returned to them at the end of the day. If it's found that they don't, if they say they don't have a phone and none is found, but a phone is found on them, they have violated the policy. And we go from there with the appropriate steps going forward. We haven't done any quantitative data on roughly how many are going through. I'm sure we can figure that out, but it's very far and few between. Far and few between. I mean, if you find 25, 30 phones for $3,700, I think we're well ahead of the game.
Definitely. I know I've heard a lot of positive in, like I said, other districts, and I'm sure we're going to hear more once we head over to the MAS conference in November. I'm sure we're going to hear from other school committees that are going to be asking us how are things at Brockton High, especially where we do have it's like a college-like campus. So we've always been leaders, and people have always turned around and looked at Brockton Public Schools, because we always just go a step further. So again, I know a lot of the educators have reached out and really have said it's made a difference. And we can tell, especially from the absentee list, it's not like it was before. So a lot of positives starting 2024-25 school year. So thank you so much to you and the staff. We are noticing a difference, and that's what they wanted from us. They wanted action, have us take action so they can feel safe.
The entire staff has been, they've been phenomenal. But again, we have to stay consistent.
Absolutely.
It's early in the season.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Any additional questions for either Dr. T or the principal, Mr. Jackson, relative to this matter? Mr. Sullivan, please.
One question for Mr. Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
Thank you. I was wondering about the parking stickers or parking passes they were talking about. Is there trouble right now with cars parking here?
I mean, there's been a couple of incidents where, we had people that looked like they were trespassing. They weren't a student. Just a student called someone to bring a food. He didn't want to identify himself. The police took care of it, escorted him off the property, but he was just parked in a regular parking space. So if we had stickers to identify in everybody's car, we would have known he wasn't, he didn't belong here. He belonged here, but he didn't. He was bringing his sister some Dunkin' Donuts.
So is that something they're doing right now, something they're doing now, or is it in the process?
I think we're in the process of trying to get it all set up because we got obviously money, got to buy the stickers, got to put them on cars, you got to put it in the computer system. So there is a process to it.
One final question. What would happen if somebody had no sticker? What are you going to tow the car away?
No, well, I mean, people do get rentals and things like that. Usually they can let you know, or we have a loudspeaker system. We'll go on it if they're. First of all, if we would only say something if the car was like in a handicap or blocking something, go over the loudspeaker and run it and say the plate. So, because people do, have their cars repaired or borrow a wife's car or a husband's car or something like that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions at this time? Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We'll continue on the report of Dr. T, please.
All right, thank you so much. So we're going to move to the next item, which I'm very excited to introduce, which is a presentation of responsive opportunities for personalized educator systems and supports. So I respectfully invite up Kelly Jones, Dr. Chris Leader, Paula Merchant, and Dr. Mustafa Muhadeen.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very, very excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having us. I'm Kelly Jones. I'm the Director of Bilingual Education for the district. And I'd like to introduce some of my team members. First off, we have Dr. Chris Leader. She's a professor at University of Massachusetts Lowell. Dr. Mustafa Muhadeen, who is our coordinator of our Adult Learning Center, and Paula Merchant, who is the executive director and founder of the Transformative Learning Collaborative. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the National Professional Development Program, the ROPES proposal that we submitted back in April, and then how this is going to impact both the Southeast Regional Bilingual Hub and the Merrimack Valley Regional Hub as well. And then looking on to recruitment for the program. So the National Professional Development Program is a federal grant program. You can find more information about it at the National Clearinghouse for English Language Acquisition. It is administered by the Office for English Language Education at the U.S. Department of Education. So the NPD program provides grants for eligible entities to implement professional development activities designed to improve instruction for English learners and assist educational personnel with ELs to meet high professional standards. And there is a whole host of organizations that supported Brockton and the University of Massachusetts Lowell in this proposal in this program, including Matsall, Lawrence Public Schools, Boston University, Bridgewater State University, the Greater Boston Brockton Workforce Board, and our Southeast Regional Bilingual Hub. So in 2024, there was a special cycle aimed at growing your own multilingual teacher education programs that serve first-generation low-income backgrounds. And back in May, we submitted a request to apply for the grant, and if funded, expend the funds. And so in the 2024 competition, there were 150 applications that went under a full review. And of these, just 13 were awarded nationally. And out of the 13, the ROPES program was one of them. So I'm very proud of the work that we did together and how this is going to support Brockton Public Schools, the Southeast region, and as well as the whole field in Massachusetts. So ROPES was awarded a $3.4 million federally funded grant. And that is the QR code if you want to learn more about it. Our grant number is there. And this is from the Office of English Language Acquisition. And this will be, thank you. And so this will be over a course of 5 years. So for 5 years, we're going to be able to support the development of multilingual, grow-your-own educators. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Chris Leader from the University of Massachusetts Lowell. She's going to walk us through the program that we have.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm grateful for when Kelly reached out about talking about this partnership. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ROPES and what we're hoping to do here. All right, so ROPES begins with community cultural wealth, and what we mean by that is in this project, we really wanted to look at the rich, wonderful linguistic resources that you have in your community. And so this project is really the culmination of long-standing partnerships that I've had with Paula and Kelly and others across the state, where we have this shared vision of supporting multilingual learners and doing it from a community-based perspective. And so what we want to do is really leverage the rich linguistic resources, the cultural resources, things that you have here in your local community. So it's a 5-year federal program that takes a grow your own and community cultural wealth approach to supporting multilingual educators and community members to become licensed teachers. So this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to do it because they gave us the money. All right, so most programs that are about addressing teacher shortage and training teachers to become certified multilingual teachers, they tend to focus and are prepared for teachers who are already licensed teachers, right? So like, oh, you're a teacher of record, why don't you get your bilingual education endorsement, right? Which is the certification you need to work in a bilingual ed program. Now, those are great, and we definitely need those. We currently actually only have 5 of those at institutions of higher education across the state. This grant will allow us to build a 6th one at UMass Lowell. The challenge with these programs is you're restricting the pool of eligible people to be multilingual educators, not just to licensed teachers, but to multilingual licensed teachers, right? So that's a really small pool. So in ROPES, what we're looking to do is make that pool deeper. Right? So when you think about, okay, who would we like to be classroom teachers, licensed multilingual teachers in our classrooms? People that come to mind are paraprofessionals who have bachelor's degrees, right? But we know not all paraprofessionals have bachelor's degrees, right? And we don't want to leave them out of that opportunity, right? We also have several community members, right, especially folks who may be migrants from other countries, right, who have content area degrees, so degrees focused in like the STEM area, right, or history, or even community members with degrees in teaching, but maybe not necessarily from the United States, right? We'd like to support them to become classroom teachers. And of course, high school students, right? Like grow your own. Like I was just at Brockton High earlier today and met some high school students who are like, I want to be a teacher, right? Let's talk to them about it now, right? Why are we waiting to do that? So ROPES, Responsive Opportunities for Personalized Educator Systems and Supports. It's a multi-tiered system of support for bilingual educator development and retention. Our goal here is to, first of all, recognize that everybody needs different kinds of resources and different amounts of time, right? 1-year programs to get somebody to become a certified multilingual teacher, that doesn't work for everybody. So what we're doing with the ROPES funding is we are developing different pathways so that if you're a paraprofessional with your bachelor's degree and you want to be a certified multilingual teacher, here's the pathway for you. If you already have your bachelor's degree, right, you don't need as much time or as much coursework or anything. We want to support you as well, right? Coming all the way down to high school, where at the high school level, students can take a ESL class that is geared towards supporting learning the language of education so they can be successful in education courseworks when they go on to take college coursework. Additionally, one of the cool parts about this program, which is quite novel, is in partnering with Mustafa at the ALC, we're also planning to develop a language of education like ESL course for adults who are learning English to also prepare them to be successful when they go on to take graduate and undergraduate coursework in education as well. So ROPES builds on the existing Southeastern Bilingual Education Hub that you have here. This is a model in the state of Massachusetts. To date, this hub has supported 50+ educators and paraprofessionals to licensure and endorsement. And they do this through coursework through Bridgewater State, undergraduate coursework and graduate coursework, specifically around like the bilingual ed endorsement. With ROPES, we can expand additional teacher training courses under ROPES. We're going to develop the language of education course that I had just briefly mentioned. And there is currently pathways coaching that happens in the hub that you have here, where people on that pathway get individualized support and mentorship to help them along the program, and we're going to be able to expand that with ROPES as well. And then, of course, additional financial support for MTELs, course materials, and things like that. So participants in ROPES, it would be cost, we're covering all those costs with the funds. So what's very exciting is supporting the already great work that's happening here and learning from it. So not only will ROPES be supporting this existing hub, expanding and learning from that, but we're going to use that to develop a similar thing in the Merrimack Valley. So as a professor at UMass Lowell, we don't currently have a bilingual education endorsement program. We do have some existing Grow Your Own programs where we partner directly with Lawrence and Lowell, and we'd like to build in something similar to what you have here in Brockton in your partnership with Bridgewater State. And so part of this project will be learning from the existing partnership here, learning from all of you, and using that to expand our programs at UMass Lowell and develop our own bilingual ed endorsement program, expanding our partnerships, right, and establishing a new regional hub there, which hopefully in the future, both hubs can work together to further our vision of supporting the pathways to becoming multilingual certified teachers. I'm going to pass it over now to Mustafa, who's going to talk about recruitment.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So ROPES participants, what we need from them, a commitment that they will do the work, a commitment that they'll give us the time, a commitment that they will be responsible and do their work, okay? There's a completion of all the assignments, commitment to pathways, coaching, instructional coaching, commitment to taking the required MTEL and passing it, okay? Two things that ROPES gives us, okay? Time, because we know that to acquire the academic language, you need at least 5 years, and money. That's $3.5 million right there. Nothing to joke at. So to meet these criteria, we're going to give preference to folks who have educational degrees from their countries, from the countries of origins, okay? That's number one preference. The second preference will be given to folks with concentrated knowledge in the areas of science and ELA and the likes, not necessarily teachers, but they do have and hold, degrees from their home countries, okay? And then we have folks from our community who might not necessarily have a degree, but they'll have a pathway. So there will be a pathway for many of the folks. And again, the reason behind this is that on a daily basis, I meet folks from the Cape Verdean Islands, from Haiti, who come here with the wealth of knowledge, with teaching degrees. What they lack, okay, is not the knowledge. What they lack is the linguistic, background, and that's what we're providing here. So we have an application deadline, and this is like, I look at my colleagues, and this is really very ambitious on our part, because we will develop an online application in the 4 different languages. We're also going to have December 14th as a day for us to recruit. People will have to fill out these applications online and meet certain criteria and certain requirements. And then December 14th will be interviewing folks, placing folks, and the likes. Any questions?
I will go with Ms. Oliver, followed by Mr. Vega, followed by Ms. Sullivan.
Mr. Hand over there. This is a great program. Thank you so much for bringing this to Brockton. I have a few questions. For the paraprofessionals that we currently have now that speaks multiple language, that are working with our kids, a lot of them are working. They stop going to college because, financial reason, they are working. I know tons of them throughout the city. What is the opportunity for them to apply for this?
So they are eligible. They are one of the preferred categories. They're one of the pathways. Those paraprofessionals who have a license, a bachelor's degree, and those who don't. And they're going to get different things. ROPES is collaborating with the existing grants that we have, like the Teacher Diversification Grant and the JET program, to develop pathways towards licensure. I think one of the most powerful aspects of this grant is our pathways coaching. So TLC, Paula Merchant, is our pathways coach. She's going to be walking alongside every single ROPES participant, charting out the path towards licensure, and then supporting them along the way with what they need, because everyone is going to need something different, and through this grant, everyone is going to get what they need in order to be successful in it. So there is a place for our multilingual paraprofessionals.
Will they continue to work in the position in the field they are now?
Yes.
And other classes like on overnight, like night classes, weekends, to make sure they continue working, but we still offer them the opportunity to
Yes, the
apply.
coursework will be provided through Bridgewater State University, with whom we have a very strong partnership, and they have a wide range of ways to accommodate working educators.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vega, then Mrs. Sullivan.
There's a lot to gush about with everything that was just presented. I just want to start off by saying terms like community cultural wealth and linguistic capital are powerful in general, but boy, do they resonate in Brockton. And for all the bad press that's out there about our city, we are deep in cultural wealth. We have a plethora of linguistic capital at our disposal, and the idea that we can use that to solve problems that we have. Dr. Tigliani was talking earlier about these recommendations from DESE about teacher diversification. Mm-hmm. This is happening. And I have to say, it's because of the level of brain power and experience that we have on display here, but also within your offices. So first off, thank you, because I think this is expertise at work, bringing expertise in, and that's exciting. So forgive me for being a little greedy in my question. Which is, so you mapped out a timeline for the application process and for the beginning of the program. How long will it be until we see the fruits of the program playing out in our schools with our learners?
So a lot of it depends on who the applicants are. We're recruiting we're going to be recruiting. I'm currently having the application translated as we speak. So once the application is translated and we have links in multiple languages, we're going to make sure we have a flyer and get that out in as many hands as possible. So this is cohort 1. And the power of ropes is that every individual is going to get the time that they need. So depending on the applicants, we may have some ropes participants who are going to be ready to go next year. But we have some that might take the full 5 years. And what a blessing it is that the federal government has resourced Brockton Public Schools, the region, Massachusetts, with the time. It is really responsive to the reality of teacher development. And I will tell you, when we pulled off this grant application, we did not sleep for about a month. And I remember saying to my husband, if it gets funded, it'll all be worth it. It'll all be worth it. These days of no sleep, it'll all be worth it. And it is all worth it.
Well, thank you, because yes, the amount of work that went in with the idea that, of the applications that actually reached the review platform, for less than 10% of them to be accepted and for ropes to be among that is truly impressive.
Those are the only, I have to say, those are the only ones who got to the full review process.
Oh, so it's probably less than significant. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your work is really reflected in this accomplishment.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a point of information, the Grow Your Own program and the JET program have been here for many years, and I thank a former superintendent, Kathy Smith, for bringing that on. So this kind of a program sounds the same as that, but I know we need the funding. So how will this new ropes program work with the progress we've made on the Grow Your Own and the JET program?
It's partnering with it and kind of coordinating our efforts. So the JET program, the Teacher Diversification Project, and ropes are going to work in conjunction so that we can maximize the financial resources that we have. And so instead of, this is a federal grant specifically looking at educators who are multilingual, and so we're not going to be kind of co-opting the existing ones. We're going to be collaborating with them so to make sure that everyone is included.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, if I might add, it's the collaboration process with other community members, because it just does not pertain to BPS only. It pertains to folks from the ALC, Sabura. We're talking about the immigrant community here, So the JET program benefited lots of, and still benefits lots of paraprofessionals. We are going to reach a wider audience.
Because I've definitely seen a lot of paras become teachers over the years. So that's a great thing.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Silva. Mr. Gomes, please.
I gotta say congratulations. This is amazing. I'm very, very excited to see the outcome of the program. I just had a quick question. So it's $3.4 million for the next 5 years. Over the 5-year period.
I wish it was $3.4 million a year, but it's $3.4 million over
5 years, yes. And I know the application will be out soon and people can start, applying. Do we have an idea of the number of people that we're going to be able to support with the funds over this 5-year period? Because to me, I was thinking, roughly 0.6 something yearly if we're to spread it apart. How many people are we looking for, whether it's through phases, cohort, as you mentioned?
So that's a great question. It gets kind of funny because, when you want the outcome, it's like certified multilingual teacher, right? But we really took this different approach where we wanted to increase the pool of folks. We do have a target across the Southeast Regional Hub and the Merrimack Valley Hub that will be developed to have 90 who are certified by the end of the 5 years. And we're hoping to hit some every year. Again, it's going to depend on who's in the pool. So there's that, but then in addition to that number, there'll be a number of folks who will be closer toward being certified as well, which hopefully, we'll get more money from somewhere to continue to support folks through those pathways.
Perfect, thank you. And the more money was the next question. Are you guys actively, or hopefully in the future, 2-3 years in, or funds, depending how much we have available, gonna be looking for more funds and lose another month of sleep to apply for other grants? And the other question too, in regards to this grant, is this is something that we can reapply for?
Those are great questions. So the National Professional Development Program typically runs on like a 5-year cycle. This call that came out for 2024, nobody knew this was coming. Then the last cycle was 2021. And so either they found money somewhere or, decided like we want to fund this. So like it was announced in like April, and then it was due at like the end of May or something. Like it was really, really fast how that happened. So you can reapply. I don't know because of the way this particular funding cycle happened, if we're going to come to another round of funding in like 26, or if they're, like where that's going to work. I can also say that there are people that sometimes have more than one NPD at the same time. This particular call, you got bonus points if you didn't currently have one. So they were really trying to prioritize folks, like kind of spreading the money around, I guess.
Okay, well, I appreciate all the work. Hopefully we'll be able to get it again, 3, 4, 5 years from now, who knows? But thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Any other questions at this time? Vice Chairman, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. It goes to show, as Mr. Vig said, how rich Brockton is in looking at, all these grants, and how do we, as also Mrs. Sullivan with the JET program. I'm also part of the teacher diversification professional learning through DESE. Was a team of 5 of us that we're meeting Monday, actually. Just goes to show that the grants are there and how we can, Brockton's already diverse, and how we be able to retain and educate our work staff that want to get into the classroom and get those licenses, and making sure we get the proper education. But I just want to say thank you very much for the hard work. I'm glad for this presentation, so the community does get the chance to see firsthand the amount of work that's being done, collaborative with all different stakeholders within the Commonwealth, and also within different departments in BPS. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chairman.
May I just close with one thing? I want to highlight that the ROPES program will provide adult ESOL programming for those candidates who were teachers in their home countries or had technical degrees in their home countries, and what they really need is the English language. And this is really addressing an additional need in Brockton, which is adult ESOL opportunities. And so the fact that the federal government saw this as worthy and saw our history of being a leader in bilingual education and funded it with UMass Lowell is just it makes those sleepless nights worth it.
Go Riverhawks.
I just want to thank you all. I love the idea of Lawrence and Lowell and Merrimack. I think it's power in numbers. If we can get any support from their school committee and their 2 mayors as well, kind of piggyback on Mr. Gomes is saying, there's power in numbers in terms of getting more federal money as well. So kudos to what you're doing. I mean, that's sizable money. It's going to really make an unbelievable difference long term. But if there's anything that we can do in conjunction and collaboration with those 2 other cities, I think it would be a win-win.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. And so that brings us to the end of item A, under the report of the superintendent of schools. And item B, items to refer to subcommittee. I see no
You
items.
don't have any, Doctor. Any, are there any matters that we're aware of as a committee, Vice Chairman?
On 10/29, 6 PM to 7:30, we will have a FinCom. Melinda, that's just to confirm, that will be at the Arnone, correct? So that will be at the Arnone. And then at 7:30 will be a special school committee on that date.
10/29. Thank you.
10/29.
Thank you. Any other matters relative to subcommittee? Mr. Vega, please.
Just putting this, I don't know where this fits exactly, but, you know, some questions have come up from folks around the report recommendations came out not too long ago. How are we tracking their implementation as they pertain directly to school committee recommendations? So at our earlier subcommittee on policy discussion, we were talking about temporary subcommittees. So I don't know if at some point we want to float the idea of having a temporary subcommittee that's focused on recommendation implementation and tracking it. But something along that line should probably be discussed at some point, because we've all had the opportunity now to read that lengthy report, and we know what pieces pertain directly to this body. So now I think folks are expecting us to kind of come up with a plan on how we check boxes along the way.
Thank you, Mr. Vega, and I concur with that. Any other matters relative to refer to subcommittee? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Agenda 4, which is consent agenda. We have A and B. A is the approval of 2024-2025 home education request. B is the acceptance of human resources notifications, which is the appointments of certified, appointments of non-certified, and then personnel actions, leaves of absences, resignations, and retirements. What is the will of the committee? Do we want to take them collectively or individually at this time?
Motion to approve consent agenda?
A and B?
A and B, yes.
So motion on the floor to accept it, made by Mrs. Sullivan, properly second by Ms. Oliver. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. If you're opposed, raise your hand. It passes unanimous. That concludes Agenda 4. Agenda 5, unfinished business. We do have discussion and we have potential vote. The first matter is report approval of bid review meeting, FY 2025 school bid, which is 25-001. Tim Sullivan, in his capacity, the dean, serves as chair of the bid. Mr. Sullivan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The bid review subcommittee met here tonight. We had 2 meetings, one at 5:30, and because of technical difficulties, we had another one at 6. We had with us Mike Morris, who's the City of Brockton Chief Procurement Officer. He explained the RFP process and the dates, things that had to be done. In this committee, we had 100% show up on the membership. There was 4. This committee has voted to move favorably to the full subcommittee, to the full school committee for its recommendations.
Any questions from the membership relative to what Mr. Sullivan just said in his capacity as chair of the bid? Seeing none, what is the will of the committee relative to this matter?
Motion to approve the bid review subcommittee meeting. Number 25-001.
It's the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan, was properly seconded by Mr. Gomes relative to accepting the bid 25-001. If you would favor that, kindly raise your hand.
On the motion.
On the motion, Vice Chairman.
Just a point of information, I did attend this. It actually was my first one, I believe, if I can remember. I enjoyed the process. There was a lot of people in the room. I do concur with Mrs. Azak, Representative Azak, that when these bids do come before the district, and then superintendent does agree as well, is that members of the bid committee or members of the school committee should attend these to see what the process is. And thank you to Mr. Morris for assisting the school district, and Trish Boyer as well, and members of the transportation. I know everybody received the packet and there was an attendance sheet, so is as transparent as possible as can be. The only thing that I requested, that I think that, I know it's done fairly in the morning and you want to give the public, access to this, but then, you get that question, well, I work midnight, so I work, so you have that. So I think one of those processes, I think, where we have our meetings and subcommittees recorded by BCA, that process also be included into that. I don't know, how the time is and we can work on that, but other than that, it was very transparent. A lot of people in the room, and, it was awarded the way it should have been awarded. So I just wanted that information out there. Thank you.
Thank you for attending, and I will talk to Scott Mercer, the Executive Director of BC. I think that's a great idea, and they already have access to City Hall, so they could utilize that. So, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Motion was made, it was probably second. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. That does pass unanimous. Next matter is the report approval of school committee policies. Vice Chairman Rodriguez, also Attorney Spotterford is here as well. Vice Chair.
Thank you. This evening we met on numerous policies, and we do have a lot of policies that need to be updated and created. So, this evening we reviewed policies, BDE, subcommittees of the school committee, BE, school committee meetings, BEDB, agenda format, BEDBE, agenda format, BEDC, quorum, policy BHC, school committee and staff communications, JQ, student fees, fines, and charges, and KF, community use of school facilities, KF-R, community use of school facilities, which were approved all for changes, and recommendations were made on the floor as well to make sure that, that we have policies, not just to change things, but just to have more accountability in our, processes moving forward. So we'll entertain a motion to, it was voted unanimously to, actually, I wouldn't say unanimous, but favorably to the committee. So I make a motion to approve all stated school policies that were taken up today during the policy subcommittee meeting.
Mr. Vice Chair, before we take a second, as amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Second.
There was a vote on the floor. It was a motion made by Vice Chairman Rodriguez, probably second by Ms. Oliver, relative to accepting the policies discussed earlier this evening as amended. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. If you oppose, raise your hand. It passes. Thank you. Next matter, again, I just want to read into the record, and then I'm going to go to the Vice Chairman. Resolution, mass ballot question 2, eliminating the MCAS graduation requirement. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Hopefully some members can jump in. So I did send out an email to the body regarding question 2. It's a very hot topic across the state. So thank you to MTA. There was a template that was basically sent out and posted for different communities, city councils, and form of governments to take up question 2. So what I'll do is I will read the resolution, and I will, open it up for members to make comments or any suggestions as well. Thank you to certain members of the committee that did make some changes, after looking at it, like, some words are kind of, I don't want to say off, but, we made some recommendations, and thank you to Attorney Spatafore for assisting in this process as well. So I will read this into record. I make a motion to have the Brockton School Committee adopt a resolution in support of Massachusetts statewide ballot question number 2, which would eliminate the use of grade 10 at Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System, MCAS, exam as a high school graduation requirement. Whereas access to high quality, publicly funded education is guaranteed right written into the Massachusetts Constitution. And whereas the goal of the public education is to teach the students essential foundational skills such as reading, writing, arithmetic, and to develop critical thinkers, engaged citizens, and lifelong learners. And whereas a bedrock of the Commonwealth's world-class public education system is strong statewide standards that are uniform throughout our public schools. And whereas the MCAS is significantly limited in its ability of accurately and effectively measure whether students are meeting the Commonwealth standards of developing the skills they need to thrive in high school. And whereas the most effective measure of whether the students are meeting our strong statewide standards and developing the skills they need to succeed in college, the workforce, and beyond are educate-led assessments such as projects, papers, tests, and group activities that are conducted throughout the school year. And whereas the MCAS is used as a high school graduation requirement, has restricted curriculum and shifted the focus of education in our public schools towards meeting the test scores instead of fostering an environment of creativity, critical thinking, and real teaching and learning that helps students realize their full potential. And whereas pediatricians, researchers, and school counselors have warned of severe impact of high stakes testings like MCAS graduation requirements of students' mental health and well-being, and whereas standardized requirements notoriously stack the deck against students of color, ESL students, and those learning disabilities, and whereas using MCAS testing as a high school graduation requirement has prevented or delayed thousands of students from earning diploma, thereby interrupting or derailing education or career plans with specifically harmful impacts of students of color, low-income students, students with disabilities, and students whom English is their second language. And whereas MCAS most accurately measures income over aptitude, using MCAS as a high school graduation requirement negatively impacts students from lower income families, thereby perpetuating the opportunity of the wealth gap. And therefore, let it be resolved that the Brockton School Committee supports passage of question 2 to replace the MCAS graduation requirement and require in study district certified that the students have satisfactorily completed the coursework demonstrating mastery of the skills and knowledge required by the Commonwealth's strong statewide standard in order to graduate. Therefore, let it be resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the state legislative delegation, the Brockton City Council, and the city clerk's office. That was some reading. Basically, a yes vote would eliminate the requirement for the students to pass the MCAS in order to graduate high school, but still require the students to complete coursework that meets the state standard. And a no vote will make no change in the law relative to the requirement that a student passes the MCAS in order to graduate high school. And any members that have any thoughts, feelings, that want to shine upon this, please, the floor is yours. Through the chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Gomes, followed by Mr. Sullivan, please.
I've never liked the MCAS. Let's start with that. But there are certain areas where you do kind of need some form of standardized testing. There are areas where that is not necessary. And for me personally, when I moved here, came in the middle of school year, started 10th grade, I had to take the MCAS. I did well, but it wasn't because, let me not brag, I got it, I got it down. But it doesn't work well for everybody. Not everyone is a good test taker. That's not the only way to measure the knowledge that one acquires or that one possesses. Currently, at my level of schooling, I don't like taking standardized testing. I prefer to write a paper or do a presentation where I can fully express the knowledge that I have within or that I've acquired over time. And to, it feels like when we have these standardized testing, we are setting boundaries. It's either you know or you don't, and it doesn't really work like that for every student. And the other aspect to this too is working in the mental health field. It puts a lot of pressure on individuals, not just students, not just high school students, so on and so forth. A lot of individuals fall under a lot of pressure when they have to take these standardized testing. It not only does it affect, cause anxiety, stress, and overthinking about these, but affects other areas of their lives. And Vice Chair mentioned that while he was reading this accurately, if you don't pass the MCAS, you don't graduate. It delays your graduation. It delays you getting that diploma. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to go to school after I graduate high school. I have plans to, go to a technical school, a vocational school. I want to do something else, but I don't have this degree, entry-level requirement, so I'm not able to do that. And it further, extends that gap, that financial gap that we currently have, minority group have with other groups. So for that, I'm in full support of this, and I would encourage the rest of you to do as well.
Thank you, Ms. Gomes. Mr. Sullivan, please.
This is probably the most controversial question of the 5 on the ballot this November. Everyone has their own views on this and on the graduation requirement. This vote doesn't mean that the MCAS is going away. MCAS is a state and federally mandated state testing. Massachusetts has led the nation in the scores for this for years. It was implemented in 1993, and state testing, okay, does make sure that kids are learning and teachers are teaching. But we're not voting to do away with state testing, but that's just, it is very important. Mass Core does make sure kids pass and meet certain standards, and I thank Mr. McGaskill for bringing up the Mass Core. I didn't realize we weren't doing it, but I read some more about it, and it seems like it would be a great thing to make sure kids are meeting certain standards. And just a question to people that are voting yes, if it is no longer a graduation requirement, then why should kids even try on it? We're trying to get kids to graduate, and it's a motivator for them to graduate, to have it as a graduation requirement. Most kids pass it. My kids were on IEPs, and they both passed it. My daughter had to take the math part a few times, but they're eligible to take it again. I don't support the yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Ms. Oliver, followed by Mr. Sullivan, please.
I was lucky not to take this test because it came after we graduated in '97. I'm just gonna, put my hat on as a nurse and somebody who's been in psych also profession for a very long time. I think everybody's different, how they approach testing, and just the preparation for it mentally is exhausting. The anxiety, the trauma that we're putting our kids to. Also, we're basically holding our educators hostage to this testing because it's all about how the performance is, and if the performance is not great, then you're horrible educators, or your school is doing bad. And this is something that I'm voting against it. I'm voting basically to remove it because we don't need it. There's so many other ways we need to start focusing on educating our kids, especially with critical thinking, how to live life, what's going on in the world now, because there's so many other ways that we can be educating them, not so much focusing on standardized testing. Myself, as I've worked in inpatient psych with young adults in the past, I've had students, Harvard students, that came in because they've gone into a nervous breakdown. They were 18, and just to see what they went through just to pass an exam, to even get to Harvard or even higher education, and we're putting them already into this trauma at a young age. I think it's something that we definitely got to look at. Our kids are already, going through so many trauma with changes after COVID that I think this is a time to get rid of it and just focus on really educating our kids, book smart, like how to live life after high school and live, just to get ready for the life out there that we need to, like financial literacy, how to, basically how to, critical think is what we're lacking right now, and a lot of kids need to start learning how to do critical thinking, thinking outside the box, and basically how to live and provide for themselves is which we're basically lacking on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Mr. Sullivan, please.
Yes, I have a comment. I'm wondering why this has come up now, where voting has already started in Brockton. A lot of people have already voted. Early voting has already started, and write-in voting has already started.
Okay. The election is in November.
I know when the election is, but the voting has already started. People have voted, cast their
Yeah, this
ballots
is-
already.
To you, yeah,
Yeah,
to me,
this is-
to you. I know somebody.
I mean, this is an initiative that's taken, and if you just follow voting yes on question 2, there's more communities and more committee members, school committees, city councils, different groups that are supporting to eliminate this. That's why I brought it forward to this committee for a vote to support the yes. You're well in your right to vote against it if you want, but I think it's right where Brockton is the most diverse community in the Commonwealth that we do support this measure because it is restricting some of our students in order to pass this test.
I just don't think it's fair that you present this as the Brockton School Committee is adopting this. None of us voted yet on this particular item.
That's why it's a,
I'm a no vote. I don't want it. I don't want it.
that's your opinion. I respect that.
But I don't want to see it as the Brockton School Committee excluding me.
Well, this is a collective body, so if you vote no, it's a no vote. It's what the will of the committee is.
Okay.
That's why we each have one vote.
Any other comments at this time? Mr. Vega, followed by myself.
I've been in a lot of conversations over the last few months with a number of other educators around this, and I'll just say, you know, within the educator community, there are some folks who are very much in favor of continuing the MCAS test as a requirement. I've found in my conversations they haven't represented the majority of conversations that I've been in, and I think that comes from the point of, like, a lot of my conversations have been with Brockton educators, and I think they recognize two things. One, removing it as a requirement doesn't remove the value that the MCAS can give us in terms of assessing where our kids are, where we need to improve and pivot. So I think standardized testing can be useful in that way. I think the challenge is, and Mr. Gomes kind of indicated, you know, he could have had a very different experience. And when we think about, you know, that diversification that we talked about, we have, you know, adults and children who are joining our community from other countries who are brilliant and are working on their English and need time to work on their English, and to come in as a 9th or a 10th grader and join into a school environment where I'm immediately discovering that the testing that I'm taking will, you know, potentially keep me from graduating. I don't think that serves our particular community very well at all. I think we lose out on that linguistic capital that we were talking about earlier, that community cultural wealth that we were talking about earlier, because these tests, and research has already shown this, are not designed for all of us. And they are certainly not designed for our community, as it currently stands.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. I have a couple, first of all, I do support this initiative, and I'll tell you why. As a dad, I've seen the stress that my own kids faced. I was a lousy test taker, but I had great teachers here at Brockton High and at West Junior High and at Whitman Elementary School. So I would have done extremely poor on the MCAS, that's a fact. But I was given the opportunity to graduate here because of the wonderful teachers that helped educate me, and I was well prepared to go to college as a result of the dedicated Brockton Public School teachers. I also know, and all of us know, that the kids are dealing with so much, and I want to echo what Ms. Oliver said. Our kids pre-COVID are not the same kids as we have right now. That's just a fact. So to add the additional stress and emotional problems of studying for an exam, I don't value it the way that other people do. Myself personally, as a parent, but I do think 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth whereas, where it says beyond our educator-led assessments such as, I would strike the word such as, and after the word assessment, I would do comma, including but not limited to, comma, projects, papers, tests, because there are other things that teachers and students could utilize for assessments, right? Not just those items. So that would be my suggestion. I also just kind of making sure that we have the right language. It should be the last sentence, therefore. It should actually be City of Brockton's state with a capital S, capital L for legislative, and capital D for delegation, Brockton City Council, and it should say office of the city clerk, period. Now, I do hear what Mr. Sullivan is saying, and I know resolutions at the State House that are made by members, either in the House or Senate, they actually define and spell out what members support it. So I don't necessarily think it would be a bad idea at the above, therefore, let it be resolved that the following Brockton School Committee members, and actually list the names of the people, because if someone up here doesn't support it, by just saying Brockton School Committee, it looks like it's unanimous. And so my humble suggestion would be anybody, any of us that vote positive, put our names there, right? Because we support this wholeheartedly, and we send it to all the powers that be. But that's just my suggestions. I truly think that that fifth whereas has to have that baked-in language. But I do want to thank all of you for putting this forward. I'm an example of someone that would have done extremely, extremely poor. I took the SATs, I took the LSATs many times, so, and that was before COVID and the emotional distress. So I do want to thank you all. I do want to thank you all on this. But those are my suggestions. Follow-up, Mr. Gomes, did you have a follow-up?
I did. It was going back to Jorge point. Not. I'll just say anyways. Yes, I do agree with your point. We do use standardized testing to get metrics, which is perfectly fine. However, as you mentioned, the one thing is these tests are standardized. They're not individualized, so it doesn't fit everybody's needs and criteria. That's for one. And then, yes, I took AP, AB classes. I love them. I did amazing. I did not pass the AP exam. It was a lot of pressure. Not that I needed it. Well, the credits would have been nice, but it was a lot of pressure.
Yep.
You know, I took AP Physics. I loved the class. I was doing amazing. And then I took the exam. It was like, oh, man. The study and the process, everything was just stress. And I was in high school. You know, I didn't have work and all these other things. Now you have a lot of kids in high school working a job, helping at home and things like that. We could use the MCAS as a test to, you know, see how you're doing, where you're at. But the pressure of if you don't pass, you won't graduate, that's what adds on top of what the student or whoever's taking that test is going through. So removing that requirement, you have to pass this to graduate, will allow us to do a lot more. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Any additional comments at this time, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing that I disagree with is naming each individual member of who supports it and who doesn't support that, because that just takes away from a body. Because when we're convened here, we're one body, we're not individuals, even though that we speak as individuals and make our own comments. But this vote was, and this resolution is a Brockton School Committee. Regardless if one individual doesn't take it or two individuals doesn't take it, it should be the Brockton School Committee, because this is brought to the committee as a whole, not as individuals. In the other piece, if the body does want that, to actually list the names of the members that do support it, and that those that don't, you know, just my opinion, I think that's wrong for this type of community that you represent. That I don't think you're representing the community as a no vote. That's just my opinion. But I think it should be the Brockton School Committee, not just as individuals, because we're as a body.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Any addition, Mrs. Sullivan, I'm sorry.
And I think it should list the names, so I disagree.
On a resolution, you can't do I mean, you could, but it would be better just so it's captured, to do different modifications or amendments. So, again, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the fifth whereas, again, I would humbly ask that you all support, we strike such as, put a comma after the word assessment, include the following language, add the following language, including but not limited to, comma, and then it would say projects, blah, 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 blah. Is there a motion relative to that matter?
Motion to accept the amendment as stated by the mayor.
For the fifth whereas,
For the
okay.
fifth whereas.
Thank
to
you.
include the language, including but not limited to, instead of such as.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Gomes, probably seconded by Ms. Azak. And again, this is just about what was before us on the whereas and the fifth whereas. All in favor of that change, kindly raise your hand. If you oppose that, kindly raise your hand. So that passes. Before we get to the Brockton School Committee verbiage, just for belts and suspenders again, we just would have to clean up the last therefore. Again, it should say, after the word sent to the, it should say City of Brockton's, and then a capital S for state, capital L for legislative, capital D for delegation. Brockton City Council, comma, and it should say the office of the city clerk, period. That's the proper language and the proper way for designations. Is there a motion relative to that matter?
Motion to accept amendment as stated by the mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
It's just cleanup, really. All in favor of that, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. It was Mr. Gomes and Mr. Vega seconded. That passes. The matter now would be, I guess I would go to you, Mr. Vice Chair, for Brockton School Committee. What is the will?
I make a motion that it's stated as Brockton School Committee and not list each individual, because this is a collective body.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, is there conversation on the motion? Seeing none, I'm gonna call the roll. There was a motion made by Mr. Rodriguez, properly seconded by Ms. Oliver, relative to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 11th matter, which starts the word therefore, and it says Brockton School Committee. All in favor of keeping it just Brockton?
And it would-
Oh,
should
on
it-
the motion, I'm sorry.
Would
Mrs.
it say the number? Like, it should say the number, how the vote went. It wasn't unanimously passed. Unanimously passed. It should say the number. It should say something, so it doesn't look like the whole committee did it.
We could put a caveat down the bottom of a resolution. It's a resolve, a resolution. You could do that if you wanted to spell out when the vote was taken, what date it was taken, and what the actual tally was. You're allowed to do that, but it's the will of the committee. Mr. Gomes, on the motion?
Yes,
On the motion.
I feel for the sake of this documentation, the intent, just leave as it is. If, for the sake of the voting itself and the positions we take, the minutes will reflect that, as it does with every other voting that we have going on. We vote on something, everybody has the same vote, they'll be as, it passes. So it'll be effective, but regardless, not everybody voted yes, so.
Just for point of information on the resolves of the city council, I can tell you, because I have to sign them as the mayor, it will say what the resolve was, who put it forth, the date it was voted, and then what the vote was, the yays and the nays.
Yeah.
So it would say 11-0. It doesn't name the people, it's just a numeral. So, and then that gets signed by the mayor after it's passed by the clerk, to the clerk's office. So you could put yays and nays, it doesn't have names, it just says like 11-0 or 9-2. But again, it's whatever the will of the committee, that was just point of information. Ms. Azak, followed by Ms. Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, for Mr. and Mr. Sullivan, I mean, if I was in that situation and I wasn't in support of it, I agree with putting the yays and the nays, because it shows that the full committee, if it's something that they're not supporting, I would feel more comfortable if we just did like they do with the city council, the yays and the nays, and just have that count at the bottom. Because if someone's not supporting something, I know we're one body, but if someone doesn't support it, they should have the opportunity to show that they don't support it.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver, followed by Vice Chairman, please.
Can we just leave the title there, the Brockton School Committee, and then at the end of the resolution, I mean, if that's what the the other members want, then we can add who voted yes and no, but at least the title, just keep it there, because this is we're a body, so.
The title is the collective body, the
Yes.
school committee, Brockton School Committee. The vote is the individual member of the body.
And that can be documented at the end of the resolution, who voted for it or not.
It could be.
Okay.
It doesn't have to have names, it could have a numeric number, yays and nays. Attorney Spotted, do you have anything else to offer? You're good thumbs up, thank you, Sarah, thank you.
Just clarification.
Mr. Vega, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, so what you're saying is, like, with other resolutions that have gone to the city council and beyond, typically, either names or vote counts are part of that.
They call them resolves, they don't call them resolutions on the city council side. The final tally is a yay or nay, unless it's a home rule petition where it is sent up in one packet to Beacon Hill. And that would actually name out the vote, because the clerk of the committee, the city clerk, would check off the names of the respective city councilors. But on a typical resolve, it would just say, 11-0, 11 yeas, 0 nays. That's how it would typically do it.
And then the follow-up would be, like, have we ever done any other resolutions as a school committee, and what do we do in those cases?
Vice Chair?
I mean, we voted on resolution to raise the dropout age for 16 to 18, which we're going to be presenting at the conference in November. But just my strong opinion about this is we do this as a body, as whatever the will of the body is, the majority. That's just what it is. So if we're going to come to this point where we want to put individuals' names that they didn't support this, then I think every vote that we take, including our policies that we've changed, we'll put down that you 2 or you 3 or you 4 didn't support this policy. So that stays on record. So whenever any school committees that come on after this, they can see what school committee members didn't vote on this and who did. But that's why we have minutes that reflect that. So, I mean, we're dwelling on having names of individuals who support it and who doesn't support it over something this is to support our students. So basically what we're doing right now is we're putting ourselves before the students because you don't agree with this.
Thank you, Mr. Vice
So
Chairman.
my vote is a yes.
Well, we haven't called the roll yet, right? Any other comments on this? Mrs. Sullivan, please.
Okay, it's a committee, yes, but you need to respect the views of people that have a different view than you. You don't belittle them because they have a different view than you. Thank you.
Any other comments at this time? It's been going on for so long, I can't remember. Did we already get a motion in a second?
Yeah, can we
No,
just?
we didn't yet? Okay, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
We
We're
had
gonna-
a
we-
motion.
We should probably have the Vice Chairman come back. Why don't we take a 1-minute recess? We're back in, we're out of recess. We are still on agenda item 5, which is the last matter on unfinished business. Resolution mass ballot question 2. What is the will of the committee? We do have a pretty lengthy rest of the agenda tonight, so we kind of want to move this forward. What is the will of the committee? The committee will be taking a vote on this. It will be either be favorable or unfavorable. So we do need to entertain a motion. There's been some discussions on if we should put yea or nay.
There was already a motion, and I seconded.
Was there a motion already seconded?
Yes.
It was.
What
Just
about-
yeah,
On the motion.
just another correction for public that early voting starts on the 19th. So it hasn't started yet.
Yeah. Yeah, ballots went in. So there's a motion. I'm going to call the vote. So it was a motion made by the Vice Chair. It was probably seconded by Ms. Oliver to support this matter. If you're in favor, kindly raise your hand if you support this matter. If you do not support this matter, or if you abstain, do you abstain or not support it? Not support, raise your hand. Okay, there's no abstention. So that does pass, and it will incorporate the amendments we discussed this evening, correct? Okay, all right. We will go on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 6, which is new business. We have a few matters in there, discussion and potential vote, MOU, BPS, and BNHC. Superintendent?
Yes, so you will see this in your packet. We're very excited to move this forward. I know that you did have a previous MOA regarding this because we did work with the BEA to ensure that we had all of the appropriate agreements in there first before moving this forward. But I know that the leadership at Brookline High School, or Brookline, oh my gosh, sorry, Brockton. Brockton High School is eager to move this forward and has been for some time since the school year started. I do know also that this will be critical in helping us support getting our immunizations up, as that is something that we have identified as an area that we need to move forward with the Department of Public Health. And so I know that this will help us in that effort as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions on this? Ms. Azak, followed by Ms. Oliver, please.
Thank you so much. I just had some questions regarding the MOU. So it mentions BHS students and their caregivers as far as providing support and services. So I thought it was just BHS students. So I'm assuming caregivers, if there was issues and they brought in the caregivers to meet with them. My other question is page, it's actually on the first page under background. If we want to go almost down to the bottom of the page where it talks about connection to community resources to address essential social needs, et cetera. Are we going to have a list of these community resources so we know where they're referring our students to?
Sorry, which page are you on?
It's the first page titled Memorandum of Understanding. And it's 1, 2, 3, probably like the third paragraph, third bullet point, where it talks about connection to community resources. So just, will we have a list of where they're sending, like, who are these community resources? And we just want to make sure that they're not gonna, when it comes to billing, because that's my other question, just make sure everything falls under this. They're referring them out, just so we know where they're referring our students in / caregivers.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, we can do that.
And my last question is, I know I brought this up when it first came out, when it comes to patient and billing. So it says, pursuant to this agreement, students served at the BNHC staff shall be considered patients of BNHC's Boxers Wellness Center. And it just talks about, accordingly, BNHC agrees to be solely responsible for billing and collecting of all payments. So, from appropriate third-party payers. So, I know one of my original questions is when this is a great program. Our students need this. So I'm just being cautious when it comes to billing and fees. You know, I remember when I originally asked the question, I was told that, you know, fees would be covered in case there was issues and say a student doesn't have insurance and things like that. I just want to make sure that parents don't come back to us and say, well, we're getting charged for things, they have deductibles. Like, these are minors, like, where's the form to get approval to give the student services without, and I apologize if I don't have correct info, but if a student comes in and they're given a student services and the student's a minor, a lot of times the parents are with the students or they approve the services. I just want to make sure when it comes to deductibles and stuff, like, parents aren't getting charged. It's like, oh, I didn't know about this charge, or I didn't know my student went there. And I apologize if I'm not as, it's been a while since we looked at this. So I just want to make sure that when it comes to billing, parents understand, and so does BNHC, when it comes to billing.
Yes, so my understanding is that the referral process would include the families in the case that they need to be involved. So yes.
As far as the caregivers?
Yes.
Okay. As far as the billing, though, how do we make sure, like, you have a minor accepting services without
Mr.
parents?
McCaskill
I just want to
has
make
a
sure the parents,
response
because
to
I know
this.
that so many have, like, some really high deductibles. I just want to make sure parents aren't getting hit with these bills and that they're aware of it. Whereas, you know, if you have a minor child, doesn't they sign something? Okay, I just want to know the process.
Yeah, a minor cannot sign off on themselves for any type of services. So that would be either an adult or a legal caregiver would be the ones who would be signing off. Only an 18-year-old will be able to do that.
Okay. So any minors that are getting services?
They're getting services that, for example, immunization. If they are because again, you have to actually sign in physicals for athletic participation. Those are things, because we have such a backup on them, this is another opportunity to alleviate that. But if it's something that needs more extensive care, that's when a parent would come in and say, well, these are the services that we feel that are necessary, and a parent either has the right or refusal to administer those services. But that by no means will we have a 15-year-old signing themselves for services.
No, thank you for the clarification. Those were just some of the questions I had, because I knew billing. Billing is a big one. And I know years ago when we had some of the there was a dental program that came in, and I remember parents had reached out. They were it was going into their dental plans and they weren't aware of it. and this was a long time ago. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if any of the parents have any questions, and just to get clarification, where this is new, it's a great program to have this service for our students. So thank you for the update.
No problem.
Thank you. Ms. Oliver, please.
Are we going to be working closely with Linda Cahill?
Yeah, we would have, yeah. I mean, they're part of the nurse. Yeah, obviously, we don't want to run a silo, so it has to be an integration of what we're doing.
Perfect. With the immunizations, is that students not being updated or not lacking, especially the new students coming in from, you know, other countries? It's hard to basically get the medical records and make sure they're up to date with their immunizations. It's a lot of work. Believe me, I did that for 8 years. But I'll be working also with the nurses to make sure who needs the immunizations to be updated, especially a lot of the immunizations, we need to make sure we get them, especially when it comes to mumps and varicella and chickenpox. We got to make sure all our students are updated with that. So are they going to be working to make sure all the physical forms are updated, the immunizations updated, and if they're not, they're going to be handling administrating the immunizations?
Yeah, we need more hands, 3,700 students, and not that all 3,700 students, but when you're talking about a nursing staff of 5,
Yeah.
and just a freshman class of over 900. And as you indicated, with the influx of new arrivals here, I mean, that's a load for 5. If we can get an extra set of hands who can offer additional resources, I think it's a tremendous boon to the district and the city itself.
Are they also going to be performing like PE physical, especially for students that want to participate in sports?
Absolutely.
Because I know the
Absolutely.
wait at their PCP is very
It's
long sometimes.
It's long. And we've lost students in the past who just couldn't get a physical.
That's true. How often are they going to be in the building, and how many staffs are going to be at a time?
We currently have 2 spaces here currently, and so I believe there are 2 in each, or we have 4, 2 in each one office apiece. And obviously, there's more talks, and I think we just have to really firm up what they're. I know we've just had a meeting last week with a number of their, obviously the executive director as well as a few other directors, because there's additional benefits that will go along with that, like programming as well for our students and our health assisting program, and some other programming as well.
Also, quick thing for our nursing students in the building. What is the possibility of them working with the team, especially administrating vaccines? I think that's a really good thing for our nursing students to have a hands-on, like even participate with them to do like some of the physicals, the vitals, and get them like ready for the field.
One of the things we have to be very mindful of are FERPA, where student privacy.
Yeah, I
and
understand the HIPAA.
We really have to be very, very mindful of that all the time, as you know. And so that probably poses some concerns. I think if we have them participating in those activities, but I think there is a way for them to be supportive and assisting in those endeavors.
Yeah, especially if they're coming into our building, it's a great reason for them to open the door to, next door, to allow our students to go and do their rotation and, the clinical, learn all the field they need to learn also, because it's a great experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Perhaps we could ask them to allow our students not to do it here, because I understand that, but we could either do it at the annex at Vincente Supermarket or actually downtown on Legion Parkway. Maybe they could do like a internship for the student nurses. So thank you, Ms. Oliver. Claudia, did you have your hand up? Oh, yeah. All right, good. Vice Chair, followed by Ms. Azak, please.
My only question is, how will this service impact our Medicaid reimbursement? Because I see Medicaid and Medicare listed here, eligible to participate in federal health care programs. Is that going to affect our reimbursement in any way, shape, or form, or do we not have an answer for that?
I would not even venture to answer that question.
Yeah, I actually don't know. But I can certainly look into that.
Okay. And then the other piece, I know this is only till the first of the year. We did talk about drafting a bid or RFP to go out. And, as a former employee of the Teen Helpline, I did start off working with Brockton Neighborhood Health Center as a teenager back in 1992. But they were at the old Christie's, which was on the main street right there, so just to see them grow and provide those services. So, and I know we've had a lot of discussion about this, not just offering this just at the high school, but at our middle school as well, to make sure that those services, wrap around across the district. So this is great. I support it 150,000%, and hopefully we can grow it and make sure that, we do get a great partnership with Brockton and able to tell Sunday if they get it.
Thank you, Mr.
Rather
Vice
than-
Chairman.
Thank you.
Ms. Azak, follow up?
Thank you. Actually, maybe Attorney Spatafor can answer this. So under insurance and indemnification, so where we have an actual medical facility that's in our building, as far as liability-wise, can we get a cop, and I'm sure, but just to make sure, like, as far as like the professional liability insurance, things like that, to make sure we have the coverage where they're dealing with our students under our roof. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time I'm seeing an actual kind of business coming in under our high school, providing a service, and collecting directly from our students. Whereas it's a service we're providing, but we're not providing, they're providing the service, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure liability-wise, I'm sure they have enough coverage, but if we can get a copy of the professional liability, and I'm sure they probably have, is it errors and omissions? Yes, errors and omissions, things like that. Because, I know as a broker, I have to have things like that and make sure I have enough coverage. I just want to cover, since they're under the high school, and providing a service, and they're not paying rent, and they're in our facility. Do we have the proper wording in here to protect us liability-wise? Because I did see that they, indicated that, we're not responsible for anything, but.
Yeah, there's indemnification provisions in there, so you can't ever prevent somebody from suing the Brockton Public Schools if something goes awry, but the agreement, I believe, would require the organization to pay for your costs of defense, and if there's ever a recovery, they would cover that. We can certainly ask for copies of their insurance. That's a pretty standard requirement. I'm sure they carry malpractice insurance and things along those lines. Our property insurance, I believe our insurers have all been notified, but I can confirm that that's happened. There are other organizations, Chartwell's, some of your transportation providers. There's a number of third parties that operate within the Brockton Public Schools, and that's why it's standard to have an indemnification provision that protects the public entity from any claims that may come.
Okay, and just curious, how does that happen? I completely forgot about Chartwell's, but how does that happen just liability-wise? What if they're hurt, they're on our facilities, they technically don't work for us? So how does, injury coverage, workman's comp, things like that? Obviously that would go under their plan, but they're still in our buildings. So did you prepare this?
No, Attorney
Okay.
Mello in my office worked on it.
Okay, so as long as we have the proper coverage, and if we can just keep on
workers'
file.
comp, the employees will be employees of the health center, so they'll be covered by their comp provider. Obviously, if there's ever, the only carve out for indemnification is if we engage in something above and beyond kind of the standard. So if we, leave an open gaping hole in the floor outside their office and they get hurt, the indemnification likely would fail in that case. But again, those are few and far between, but when we invite anybody into our buildings, we run those risks that somebody would get hurt. But the indemnification covers most, if not all, of those situations.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions at this time? What is the will of the committee? Vice Chairman?
I'll make a motion to approve the MOU between the Brockton Public Schools and Brockton Neighborhood Health Center.
Formal
Second.
motion. I think Mr. Vega got the second. Was that you or Mr. Gomes? I'm going to give it to Ms. Oliver. How's that? A motion was made by Vice Chair, was probably second by Anna. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Next matter is just a simple vote. It's a change of venue for regular November 19th school committee meeting from this place, the George M. Romm Little Theater at Brockton High School, to the Unknown School. What is the will of the committee?
Motion to change the venue for the regular November 19th school committee meeting with Brockton High School, from Brockton High School to the Arnone School.
Second.
Formal motion made by Mr. Sullivan, properly second by Mr. Gomes. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. That will pass again. And also, as the Vice Chair notified us all a little earlier, same thing for 2 weeks from today, the 29th, we will be going to the Unknown School as well. Ms. Azak?
Just a reminder, we were going to get clarification from Mrs. Campbell on the November 5th meeting. I believe that's election, the night of election. We spoke about that before the meeting.
Yeah, and we only have one, the superintendent clarified it, we
Okay, so
only
there is
have
no meeting.
one
Okay.
scheduled for November.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next matter, surplus of old Brockton High School football helmets, athletic department. Mr. Vice Chairman has reached out to myself, to Dr. Tehiliani, also to Solicitor Bridges. I think Attorney Spotiford was on it as well. The floor is yours, Vice Chair.
So our football team has a abundance of football helmets that are not usable or certified through its vendor. So basically what usually happens after a certain amount of years, those football pads or equipment are not deemed usable, and they're usually discarded. So with the Alumni Association and Save Our Sports, they've came up with an idea to do raise some funds for the athletic program, specifically for the football. And what they want to do is actually take these helmets, because some alumni want to purchase it, or a raffle where they can keep it as a memorabilia, or, any of these one of the sports bars in the city has a Brockton Eye helmet on their mantle, or somebody at their house can have it. So I know I want one. Talking to the athletic director and the coaches and some of the booster clubs, instead of the high school district throwing these helmets away, usually what they do is they'll take off the face mask that they need to use and put it on new ones. So it was recommended that we deem these surplus and donate it to Save Our Sports, which is an arm of the athletic program which supports all of the Brockton sports. And they will basically be the ones geared towards raffling it or selling it off. And those proceeds, once they've gotten it, will be basically presented back to the school committee. We'll take that, and the superintendent will direct it back to the appropriate funding source. So I'll make a motion that the Brockton School Committee deems the football helmets as surplus items to be donated to Save Our Sports.
On the
Second.
motion, I believe the solicitor also said that they're deemed as valueless because they're going to be discarded and thrown out. So it's surplus, valueless, and that gives us, as the body, the ability to donate them to Save Our Sports, which is a nonprofit. So again, that's just point of information. Motion was made by Vice Chair. Was there a second? By Mr. Gomes. Anything on the motion? Now I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, kindly raise your hand. If you oppose, raise your hand. It passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Even Officer Mosley raised his hand.
Hopefully every member here gets a helmet.
So at this time, we actually are going to ask Officer Mosley, he's in attendance, we thank him. Agenda 7 is school safety, security, police liaison, and again, Officer Mosley is here, and we thank him. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Let me get out my notes here. VA Sergeant Livingston. All right, so to start off with a couple of things, the school energy and atmosphere has improved. It's better than the last 2 years. Again, I think largely has to do with the yonder packs, and I think having the support staff for the safety and security has definitely made an improvement. Having more eyes on youth. They like to roam around the high school like it's a mall, but I think they've been on top of it. So but like the principal said, it's better, but we still need to work on it. We're still working with collaborations with the DA's office and the juvenile probation with the CBJJ meetings. good news here. School police will be advertising new police officer entry exam in mid-December and January. Yay. Another successful football outing. We just need to get a win to top on that. We'll get there, though. The safety director seamlessly working on with the school police, with the metal detectors, doing trainings with the new access control members and refreshing some of the people that have been there with the setting up with the metal detectors and operations. Some of our officers are still doing some mentoring encouragement with some of our youth with making choices after high school. I like to say that, including myself, who didn't graduate that long ago, back in '93, all former graduates of Brockton High, and let them, I think it's nice to see us coming back and giving back to the community, and, in this form of law enforcement. So I think that's a good thing. And what else is there? Oh, parents, we ask you to help us with encouraging the students to wear their IDs and take off their hoodies to keep a safe learning environment. I can't stress that. I think that's, again, I think we all, myself, Mr. Jackson, and Principal McCaskill, emphasize that with, the safety of the students. They can help with that as well. And that's all I got. Any questions for
Any questions for Officer Mosley? Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Thank you. Next agenda item is actually 8 announcements. Again, I just want to reiterate again, 2 different matters. October 29th, 2 weeks from today, venue change will be at the Unknown School. And then also, we just took a vote for another venue change, which is on November 19th. Any other announcements from the committee tonight? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is executive session. Let me read this into the record, please. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining when an open would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. This is relative to Teamsters Local 653 School Bus Drivers Unit. Next matter is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto. And again, this is relative to the review of the safety audit. And then lastly, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. And I, as chair, do so declare. This is about litigation. I need to take a motion to go into executive session. Mrs. Sullivan made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Azak made a second to go into executive session. I will now call the roll. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. We're going to executive session now. What room is it, Mrs. Campbell? Same room. And we will not, I'll say that, we will not be coming back here into open session. Thank you.